All right, Alana, I have to tell you, this is, and I feel like I say this every once in a while, not all the time. This is one of the best books I've ever read. I've literally been sitting with it like this all morning. I can't put it down. And then when I do, I put it down from my hands, but it is not down from my brain.
Oh,
I,
wow.
it has led me to really reassess the ways, all the ways in which I do all of the things because it is so beautifully written and so simply delineated, but also so deeply rooted in allowing us to kind of look at some superficial ways in which we are misapplying the
Mm.
misdefined word of femininity.
Hmm.
And then also the very deeply ingrained ways in which we behave feminine or not that are rooted they're rooted in the way that we've been brought up and the way that we've been told to do or not do things and the way that we've been told good and bad are represented in our minds, in our behaviors, in our words, even in the volume of our voice. And so I've really, I do a lot of work. I do a lot of like inner work and meditation and reading. And I talk to my coach and I talk to my therapist and all this shit. But like this book, this thing right here has really, um, it's like it shook me a little bit where it's like, but wait, there's more in a good way, in a beautiful way. And
Yeah.
also, I found in the beginning, especially some parts of it very triggering, which
Mhm.
is I feel, for me at least, the sign of a good book.
Yeah.
If you're just sitting there like, yeah, I agree. Oh, this is fucking awesome. Ha, ha, me too. It's not really getting at anything. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right.
But there are some parts that I'm like, wait, what is she trying to say right now? Because that sounds like something I don't like. And then it's like, oh, that's why I don't like it. Because the part of it that I believe is rooted in bullshit. And so the way she's saying it requires me to be more courageous, requires me to have to step up, requires me to expand into a bigger, better version of me in order to not be triggered by that. And so I don't want to give anything away, but we're going to talk and we're going to talk for a long time. So I hope you cancel whatever you have next. I'll give you like 5 minutes to text whoever you have to
I've
text.
cleared the day. Don't even worry about it.
Fantastic. Okay. So The Way of the Satisfied Woman. This
Mhm.
book is all about reclaiming the feminine power. And I feel like it is also so freaking timely. But when I think about how timely it is, I also want to ask you, how long were you working on this book? Because it feels like you wrote it yesterday all in one sitting.
I didn't write it yesterday all at one sitting. I've actually been doing the study and the research on this book for almost 20 years. And the timing could not be more perfect. And I had no idea. I know that a couple of years ago, I was running a business that I was done with and tired of doing that particular business. I was ready to talk about this. And so I actually sold the business, shifted everything that I am, everything that I do to this because the calling was so powerful and almost so commanding within me. So once I cleared that space, I got the book deal and started writing. And that was probably almost 2 years ago now that that process really began. I mean, I've been teaching about this work, writing about it in other ways, but to put it all together and to bring it into the book, it was long before what's happening now. But I think something in me knew that this time was right.
I find it both disturbing and fascinating that this is 20 years ago relevant today.
Oh, it's 100 years ago relevant today. It's
Yeah.
5,000 years ago relevant today. I mean, women have been living under the patriarchy for anywhere between 3 and 8,000 years, and they've had a lot of time to figure out how to diminish, dismiss, and repress us. And we are very lucky, despite whatever's happening for us right now. Whenever your podcast listeners are listening, we are incredibly lucky as women to be living in this time, in this place right now. We have more power, agency, and choice than we do right now at this time than we ever have before. I mean, 30 years ago, women couldn't have their own bank account without a male cosigner. 30 years ago. That's not that long ago. So we live in a time where we can actually start to pull the wool off of the eyes. So we can start to course correct. We can start to really live the principles of femininity. Whereas 30 years ago, not only wasn't it possible, but it was less safe to do so. So we're quite lucky.
So let's start there.
Yeah.
Let's start with femininity, the word, right? I love how in the book you explain what we've been told femininity is, right?
Mhm.
And I actually have, I have so many notes I
Wait,
never have notes when I'm interviewing people.
wow.
You,
Did you
I'm
highlight?
like,
Are you dog-earing pages? What
I
kind of note taker
do.
are you?
Look
That's
at this.
fantastic.
Look at that. Hold on. Where is it? This is the part. I have like,
Oh my God. That you have no idea how much joy that brings me to see my book in use like this. It's such a powerful feeling. Thank you.
and thank you. And this is kind of like speed reading because usually when I'm like in relaxed reading mode, I will take pen to this and argue with you.
Oh.
I will like write, well, also, but I was talking to you off camera
Yeah.
a little while ago where I've had like some very busy times and I haven't really been able to sit down and enjoy this book the way that I usually do when I bring authors on the podcast. And it's just like, I we already discussed it. It's like I'm gonna have to bring you back on for another for another interview,
Another sesh.
for another sesh when I have written in all of the margins of this book.
Perfect.
Okay, so I want to talk about femininity, I think is a really good place to start
Okay.
because it's so much of what the book is about, but there's just so much misunderstanding and misdefinition of what femininity is, right? And so in the book, you say, hold on, I'm trying to grab something. In the book, you talk about how femininity has been defined by the masculine
Mhm.
and it has been defined by the masculine as its counterpart, right? It has been defined just as like the opposite of what masculinity is. And so it has been defined as delicacy, frailty, and breakability. I love that you use those words in relation to the masculine. And as I hear that, I'm like, yeah, but
Well,
that's not what feminine is. And I want to
no,
hear your definition of
no.
femininity.
Femininity is fierce. Femininity is wild, it's free, it's expressive, it's deeply inquisitive. The feminine is the truth seeker. The feminine will not rest with discomfort. The feminine is, I mean, powerful beyond measure. The feminine has life force energy. We are generative. We are creative. That's the kind of thing that can't be harnessed or tamed. Two of the feminine superpowers are our intuition and our emotional depth. And that's another thing that's been really overlooked and dismissed. And I would say that it hasn't been masculinity specifically that's defined femininity. I would say that it's more the patriarchal culture that we're in that has misdefined femininity. Because there's nothing wrong with masculinity as a psychological energy. There's nothing wrong with femininity as a psychological energy. These are the energies of the world that we live and operate in. They are simply the dichotomy of our existence. They are the polarities that make everything work. So we need both. Both work in conjunction with one another, but we need both in their healthiest expression. And what women have been taught and trained in this culture and in this day and age throughout patriarchal history is that we are less than, we are subservient, we are better seen than heard, we are prettier when we smile, we are meant to be meek and mild and soft and breakable, and that we are at the service of men. None of that is true. None of that is healthy masculinity. All of that is just kind of a cultural doctrine that keeps people in power and keeps people not in power, not in power. So that's something that we can certainly argue and rail against. But I just want to be careful and mindful that there are good men out there and masculinity is not the problem. It's unhealthy masculinity and the patriarchal notions of power and control that are the problem.
In your research, where have you found was the point, or have you found the point when it changed? Because it wasn't always like this.
No.
There are still very few, but there are still some tribes that are untouched by this behavior that are still matriarchal that honor and cherish women. And we'll talk about your definition of cherish and being cherished
Yeah.
later. But have you found in your research the point when it all got fucked up?
Um, well, it's not like there's a marker in time. I think it's kind of like the frog in the boiling pot of water, which, if you've heard that metaphor, when you put a frog in a pot of water that is regular temperature, it doesn't notice. And when you slowly turn up the heat, eventually that frog is being cooked to death, but it is already still in the pot and it doesn't know to get out because the temperature is changing so slowly. So I think it was more of that kind of progress. And research doesn't give a like definitive moment, but we do see these problems start to arise with the rise of agriculture and the concept of ownership. So the ownership idea of I own this land, I own these animals, this area is mine, is when we start to see these more patriarchal ideas creep in. And of course, what's more powerful than a woman who gives birth and is creative? Nothing. When you own that, you basically own humanity. So I think that somewhere in there was this concept of like the idea of ownership is fine. The idea of protection is good. And I think originally, one of the masculine superpowers is protection. I think originally it probably started as that healthy concept of protection, like, hey, this is my tribe, this is my space. I want to make sure it's safe from harm. That can become distorted into control. So the initial underlying energy of it, protection is good, but the way that it then distorts into control is where the problem begins.
Yeah. And when we think about, however many hundreds, thousands of years it's been since that,
Yeah.
the pot is boiling, the frogs are jumping.
Yeah.
I am a frog. I am a jumping frog. I am a
Yeah.
lucky frog
Yeah.
because I have a phenomenal man who
Oh,
he said not all men are
no.
broken in this way.
No.
My words, not yours. But I'm lucky to have a husband who trusts my intuition in a way
Yeah.
that sometimes I am surprised. Even
That's
that
critical.
sometimes I'll say, I don't know. And he'll just be like, okay, it's done. And I'm like, wait, you're not gonna like discuss it and try to rationalize with me. And he's like, nope. If it's not, he'll say the words like, if your gut says no, it's no. Or like he'll say something like, nah, I don't know. When your face looks like that, it's a bad idea. And I'm like, when my face looks like what? And like he just has that where he's come to terms with like,
Yes.
I don't always have a logical explanation for when I say, meh, it's not, it's just
I,
something not
I
aligning with me with that.
I know that the people listening to your podcast can't see the giant beaming smile on my face, but the fact is to hear you say that, like it's evidence. Okay. It's evidence because that is peak healthy masculinity. The feminine, our powers of intuition and emotion are powerful and critical and at the core of who we are and how we decide what is actually best, not just for us, but for those in our environment. Femininity will not rest if everyone is not happy. Okay. So it's not just a selfish thing to say, oh, I don't feel good about this or this isn't feeling right to me. It's actually good for the whole. So one of the issues is that intuition and emotion have been so diminished and dismissed because it is not logical and rational. Logic and reason, those are the masculine superpowers. Those are masculine traits. Intuition and emotion is not meant to be rational. It's just not. It's coming from a different place. We're not supposed to rationalize it. And when you have the masculine truly honoring and cherishing the feminine, he is not dismissing it. He is not rationalizing it. He is simply using it as almost like the wind in his sails to ensure that he's on course. And if that wind shifts, the course shifts. It's as simple as that. And it doesn't need to be rationalized. And I want to really give your women listeners permission to you do not have to justify your emotions and your intuition. You don't
Mm,
have to. And find someone who honors them as they are.
yeah, I love that. I love that because I have been in conversations before with other men. I had a life before my husband. I hardly remember, but it was there, I'm sure. And I have spoken to men about this before, and even to some women where I've said, I just don't have a good feeling about it. It's just my
Yeah.
gut says it's not a good idea. And they
Yeah.
will ask me why. And I'm like, I don't know. It's
Yep.
just my literal gut feels like there's a break in my stomach right now,
Yeah.
and it's a no. But
Yeah.
why? Do you not like it? Is the proposal not enough money? I'm like, I don't know.
We don't know.
I can't give you logic. I won't give you logic. I don't have the time to try to
Yeah.
logicize what I feel in my stomach. It's in my stomach. It says no, and I'm done. And speaking about that, there's a bit in your book that talks about how there's actually science behind the gut feeling. Can we
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, look, all of your, not all of your, I think about 70% of your brain hormones, your emotional hormones are actually made in your gut. So they talk about it as the gut brain. And I mean, as human beings, we've known that for so long. Do you feel it in your gut? Oh no, this doesn't feel right in my belly. Like there's kind of an inner knowing when things don't sit well with us that our bodies are telling us something else. And we do have wisdom that goes beyond logic. We just do. Everyone has intuition. Men have intuition, women have intuition. It's the feminine principle, but everyone has it. And when your gut says no, I mean, it's literally like that part of your brain inside of you talking to you saying, this isn't the right time. This isn't the right energy. This isn't the right space. So there's a lot of research and science behind, you know, not just listening to our gut, but the detriment when we don't. No one ever, not one person, 100% of the time, has ever been served from ignoring or dismissing their intuition. It never ends well. And you're welcome to find out why with all your logic and reason, or you can just listen to your gut.
Yeah. Or you can just listen, period, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
like, come on now. There's something really beautiful, I think, in your book that I loved reading, and it talks about the power and the purpose of feminine intuition. It's
Mm,
not just this thing, right? It's not just like, oh, it's this cool trick I have.
mm.
I talk about when I coach in business, one of the things that makes my coaching approach unique is the fact that I tell women they need to do business like women. And this is
Yes.
very different from how men do business. And we'll get into that. And I'm excited to hear your
Yes.
take on this also. But the way that I teach this is through what I like to call the intuitive compass, where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you want to scale your business. Before we start looking outside at systems and things that we can implement, I want you to ask your gut, what does your intuitive compass say about the scalability? Right. And then we can find the systems to support whatever your intuitive compass says, whichever direction your intuitive compass says go, then, okay, great. We're going to go in that direction. What tools do we need? Fine. Let's find that. Right. Like that already exists. And one of the things you talk about is how our intuitive guidance has been honed through a long lineage of our foremothers since time immemorial.
That's right.
And you talk about how our grandmothers and our grandmothers' grandmothers have informed our sense of place and being and rightness, and that this is a powerful teaching, and our job is to heed it. And you talk about how in our deep history, these women have cared enough about us to pass down their message, and they placed it in our soul so that we would listen when it mattered most. I've read this line so many times and it chokes me up every single time. And it's just like, it's just so beautiful because it gives us a reminder of how present we are and how present we've been and how present they still are within us. And also like the learning of depositing this in our own children, in my little boy's intuition and my daughter's intuition, if I'm ever blessed with meeting her in this lifetime. And it's you say it's hard, but we are women. Our choices are never easy. It has to be one of my favorite things that you've written in this book, what I've read so far. And when it comes to that, when it comes to that not easy choice of starting to remember this wisdom that has been within us since time immemorial, it is in our literal DNA.
Yes.
What would you say for a woman who feels lit up inside by this conversation right now, but doesn't know how to start listening to intuition?
I would I would reassure her that it's there, that it's inbuilt. You already have it. There's no, I don't want to dismiss her worry about missing it because that's real, but I would almost say there's no practice necessary. It is who you are. It is a part of your soul, it's a part of your DNA. And not only does it want to be heard, it demands to be heard. I even tear up at that line. I remember writing it. Um, I dedicated the book to my grandmother, and I had a very special relationship with my grandmother. And she went through hell so that I wouldn't have to. And I think about, every woman, every woman in our history who has gone before us, even if they just went a few years ago, they had it harder than we do now. They had it harder than we do now. I don't care what you're going through right now. Women of even just one generation ago didn't have the choices and opportunities that we do. And I know it's still hard. I know our choices are still not easy, but please let's stand on their shoulders. Let's use their wisdom. Let's use their hope for us for something better. Because every woman who has come before us has hoped for something better for us. Every woman has known this oppression. Every woman has known what it's like to be dismissed, what it's like to be told to shut up, to sit in the corner. Every woman has heard that she can't. And every woman has felt that she must, because that's part of our drive of who we are. And I believe it's our responsibility and our duty to listen. So even when you are told, oh, give me a reason for that, give me your logic behind that, my dear friend, just stop and listen. You are inbuilt and prepared with the knowledge and the wisdom that you need to set yourself on the right path for you. And to listen just means to be quiet for a moment. You might feel your intuition as a literal physical sensation. I do a lot of coaching as well, business coaching, and as you can imagine, relationship coaching with this work. And I had a powerful experience yesterday with a woman who I think reflects what you're talking about. She's in a marriage that is not healthy. Everyone in her life takes advantage of her. Everyone expects her to continue to give, give, give without ever saying no. And she's feeling incredibly pressurized by all that. And she says, Alanna, I can't even hear myself anymore. I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what the right thing is to do anymore. And I said, okay, just close your eyes. I said, just close your eyes. And I said, look, it's a safe space. Just put yourself in a recent time. It doesn't matter what it is. In a recent time where you felt somebody, and it doesn't matter who it is, was asking too much of you. And feel where that is in your body. Feel where that is in your body. And she ended up putting her hand right around her solar plexus and kind of up above her chest, like right below her throat. And I said, what do you feel? She said, I feel pressure. I said, okay. I said, that's your intuition. That's your inner feeling. That's your gut feeling. I said, that's what no feels like to you. When someone is making a request that you should not honor, that is the sensation that your body is delivering to you that tells you what your boundaries are. That is a clear no. And I said, all right, in that same situation with your eyes closed, what would it be like to freely, without consequence, say no to that request? And she said, it's not a sensation, but I feel like a butterfly. And I said, then that's your clear yes, that that's the right decision for you. So it just takes a moment. There's nothing really to do. You don't have to practice. You don't have to go anywhere and get intuition. I don't need you to do a weekend workshop. Just sit and listen, and please listen to it and heed it. It's there.
I love that so much. Especially you saying like you don't need to go to a workshop on it.
You don't need to do a workshop.
I feel like we're constantly seeking, and I've been guilty of this, not pointing fingers here, seeking somebody else to teach us how. Seeking
Mm,
somebody else to teach us how to
right.
connect to our highest self, seeking somebody else to teach us how to tap more deeply into our intuition, seeking somebody else to teach us the things that are inherently within us. And it
Yeah.
doesn't take anything. I love the way that you explained just a moment ago. You said it is who you are. It
Yeah.
isn't something you even have to find. It is already there. You just have to choose to look at it. It's not even look for it. It's
Absolutely. I
there.
mean, and that's not to say that like a good coach or a therapist isn't useful. But
Yeah, we help.
guess what they're going to do? They're going to ask you, what are you feeling right now? What does that decision feel like? What would it feel like to make the decision that really is yours? They're simply going to coach you and give you some practice in honing what you already know. They're going to give you the space to really lock into this is how I make decisions. All women need to do, and I don't mean to be this reductive, but if I can be, all women need to do is simply listen to their intuition. If it's a clear yes or a clear no, if you start there, I guarantee, I'm not saying that the decisions are going to be easy. I'm not saying people won't be disappointed. They will. But you will know that it's right for you if it is clear to you in your intuitive knowing.
Yeah. One of the things that you mention in the book that are super important for women to be able to truly live in this new definition of the feminine, the wild and untamed and intuitively led feminine,
Yeah.
is that we need to have four keys. We
Mm-hmm.
need to have safety to be ourselves and free from harm in the body, in the mind, and in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty easy to understand. We need to have security, knowing that our needs are being provided for.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to understand. We need to have trust in ourselves and the situation and the people around us. And then we need to be cherished, to have our emotions and intuition honored by the masculine.
That's right.
That one, not so easy to understand.
Well, tell me what's not understanding for you.
Tell me. So I personally get it because I have a man like that at home.
Mm.
And because I left corporate, you know, as soon I stepped into corporate to take a break when I did for a while, believe it or not, that was my break. And
Wow.
as soon as it got, you know, as soon as I felt back in a box, I was like, oh, I'm out of here. I don't do this well
Gotta
anyway.
go.
I knew it. Yeah. For me, the break was along the lines of like, I needed a paycheck that was coming in every 15 days. I needed health insurance because I had burned myself to the degree of having to make a hospital visit. And I needed like steady hours. I needed somebody to tell
Wow.
me you have to be at work at this time and you need to leave at this time because I was working myself to physical destruction, right?
Right.
Um, and so I went to take a break in corporate. It didn't last very long. And immediately I was like, I am not built for this. I'm not built for being told what to do. Right. And so what happens with the cherished part is immediately I am put in the shoes of the women that I've coached that, for example, are either still in corporate or work in C-suite and have a lot of that male energy around them that does not cherish their intuition, their emotions, or their creative, because their
Right.
creative is not built on logic. It is built on our inner knowing that this is just going to work.
Correct.
And so I want to dive into that one for the women who are not feeling cherished right now, specifically in those professional spaces. What would you say? Do we demand it? Do we say, what's wrong with you? Do we quit? That's what I vote for. Just fucking quit. But, but you know, we can't always just quit. So what words do you have for that?
Yeah, I look, I reflect what I said in the book. We are women, our choices are never easy. Okay. And these four keys, they are essential. The book is The Way of the Satisfied Woman. And what I'm hoping and what I'm advocating and what I'm living every day of my life for is to help women become more satisfied on every level in their lives. We cannot do it without these four keys. And we cannot necessarily do it all entirely ourselves. And I know that might be a gut punch to the incredibly independent women who are alive today. I'm one of them. I understand how hard that is because our patriarchal society has told us we need to be everything for ourselves at all times, at all costs, and everything for everyone else also, without fail, always saying yes. And that is a heavy burden to place on anyone, and it's an incredibly heavy burden to place on a woman. We are relational beings. We live with other people. I don't care how independent you are, you're going to run into someone else at some point. Life is about being in partnership, relationship, intimacy, friendship with others. It just is. Now, that said, not all places, spaces, and relationships are safe. Not all places, spaces, and relationships provide security or trust. And not all places, spaces, and relationships will provide cherishing. The corporate world, the business world especially, is a very masculine rooted world. And it is cutthroat, it is linear, it is based on key metrics, it is based on doing things at all costs. It is always, most always based on doing things at all costs to the detriment of others. There's really not a lot of feminine expression in this form of business. Now, it doesn't mean it can't be found, but I will say it is going to be harder to find. So for the woman in that space, look, if she loves it, amazing. We have no issue, right? And there are going to be some people in your work culture that perhaps you can work with, I mean, to soften them in some ways or to say that you need support in this ways. But if you can't get the cherishing that you need in your work environment or in your work life, then it's really critical that you cultivate it elsewhere. I'm trying to encourage women to lean into it as much as possible, right? I can't expect any of us based on the world that we live in to go out tomorrow and perfect this and get everything in order. But find it where you can. I'm a huge advocate of curating your life very heavily. If the friendships aren't supportive of you in this way, fire them. If the communities aren't supportive of you in this way, fire them. If your family members aren't supportive of you in this way, you might not be able to fire them, but can you limit your exposure? Can you limit your time with them? Can you set clear boundaries around your own energy so that you're not continuously depleting yourself? And in the same way, can you do that to some extent in your business environment, which might be draining you? And I am also an advocate. Look, if this is important to you, if you really want satisfaction, if you really want to feel the true power and potency of your creativity and full abundance, which is feminine, then it might be time to make a switch. And I understand if you can't do it tomorrow, and I understand if it's not possible at all, but where can shifts be made? Where can we lean into it a little bit? Where can we create some space for the feminine to flourish?
And when I think about that, I also, being somebody who, like you, leads other women, right, in our coaching spaces and the things that we do, I feel like the word cherish is so different than, for example, something that I always talk about is like we need to celebrate our wins and we need to celebrate each other.
Okay.
And that's very active in my community. And, but the word cherish is just so much deeper than that.
It's powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
just so much more than just celebrating each other. And I
Well,
feel like there's almost some like a duty within us, within women, to, because we are so aware that we are not being cherished sometimes by our male counterparts, by the masculine energies around us, that it is so important that we step into that for each other too, because I don't necessarily think it only can needs to come from the masculine to cherish each other.
I'm going to challenge you there. Let's
Tell
hold
me
them
more.
accountable.
Oh, no, no.
Right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
they're
absolutely.
50% of the planet, you know, they
Absolutely.
have some responsibility here. And when women support each other, it is just a different style of energy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely critical. Women need to support each other. We, you know, part again on the ongoing list of qualities of the feminine our community collaboration, connection, empathy. We really thrive when we're in a collective. We really thrive when we are honoring each other, listening to each other, supporting each other through our challenges. I mean, I think about, tribes of long ago and how the women would be together all day talking, listening, working out challenges, working out problems. I mean, we are the emotional regulators of our family systems and communities. We just are. It's a lot of work, and especially in this day and age, it's a lot of emotional labor. But that is part of who we are. It's how we're bred. It's how we're built. It's how early childhood. When we start to see children below the age of about 5 or so, they all play together. But around age 5, no matter what culture you're in, no matter where in the world you go, children will start to self-segregate into gender based on play. And the little girls will create like little scenarios. They'll have like little arguments. They'll have little family issues and then they'll work them out. So we're already practicing this communal connection, empathetic, emotionally rooted basis of living and emotional regulation. Whereas the little boys are going off and they're playing war games. They're strategizing. They're looking for, more territory, more power. Who's stronger? Who's more capable? There's competition. And that lends itself to a different set of really powerful qualities in adulthood. So when women get together and support each other, it's calling back who we are as feminine beings. Because one of the other things that the patriarchy tricks us about is that women are meant to be in competition with one another, with one another. And it's a way to isolate us. It's a way to make us fear the other. It's a way for us to feel always um, kind of on our back foot. Like, oh, we have to compete with her for that man. We have to compete with her for that job. We have to compete with her for the likes. We don't have to compete. That's a great lie we can all dismiss with supporting each other in communities of women who make us more powerful. I mean, I marched in 2017 during the Me Too movement in New York City. You know, I wore my pink pussy hat. I felt the power of that many women with a simple ask coming together to create social change. That is how social change is created. Think about the suffragettes in the early 1900s. When women get together on a core idea, the world can't help but notice. And when the world is patriarchal, it doesn't want to change. So it tries to separate us, it tries to shut us down. So support amongst women is critical, but it is different than being cherished by the masculine.
I agree. Yeah, and so would you say that the feminine always needs a masculine counterpart?
Yes. Now, that is not qualifier here. That is not to say that it has to be heterosexual and that it has to be between a, male born male at birth and born female at birth person. Okay, we're in the future. All expressions and identities are absolutely wonderful. When we talk about psychological energetics, the things that are just inside of us, every human being born in a human body is going to have both masculinity and femininity within them. And every human being will effectively self select which polarity they would like to more so lean into. Which polarity is their primary polarity? It doesn't matter the body, it doesn't matter the orientation, it doesn't matter the gender. Every human is going to have a polarity that feels more comfortable to them. Especially an intimate relationship, it is going to be most dynamic when you find another human being on the opposite polarity, primarily so. Now, it doesn't mean that the two of you can't flip in certain circumstances. It doesn't mean that your beloved masculine partner won't need to just lose his shit for a minute and get all emotional and you got to hold the pose for a second. Yes, but then he needs to shift back, right? So there's a lot of dynamism, but a core tenet is inside of an intimate relationship, opposite polarities are what attract. It's like the yin yang symbol. I think about that a lot. In Eastern mysticism, the yin yang symbol is a perfect circle. That circle can roll on down the road of life, no problem. And inside that circle, you have two little paisley shapes, a light one and a dark one. And the light one has a dark spot, and the dark one has a light spot. So each has a little bit of the other in it. And the paisley shapes in and of themselves are perfect. They're beautiful. They're whole. They're complete. But they are designed to work with the other. That singular paisley cannot roll on down the road of life. It gets stuck. You need both. You just do. And I think that's okay. Being in a culture that is so hell-bent on individuality and the singularity and DIY, like do it yourself and do it at all costs. And, we really praise when people are self-starters, go-getters, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We were not designed for that. Human beings were not designed for that level of independence and individuality. We are designed for interdependence, not codependence. Interdependence. We are designed to be in relationship with others, whether that's intimate relationship, friendship, partnership, family, community, doesn't matter. We're designed to be with one another. And when you work with someone who has a complement, you actually empower each other and you get more done. You create more, you accomplish more, you manifest more of what you're capable of when you have a little help.
That feels so yummy just to listen to it because it's like every part of my body is saying, duh, yeah, like, don't we know this? And we do know this, but we're not practicing it like we should. And so it's so refreshing. What would you say is, having talked about femininity and having talked about the book and the keys and stuff like that, what would you say is the definition of the satisfied modern day woman?
Sure. So, I chose the word satisfaction very, very deliberately. And I was thinking about, okay, if I'm gonna think about like what do I really want for women? I don't want success for them because success is very masculine. It's very linear. It's very at all costs. It's very singular. And women don't operate that way. The feminine doesn't operate that way. So I was blown away when I heard the definition of satisfaction. So I'm going to rely on that for what a satisfied woman is. So satisfaction is defined as, ready? Get your pencils. The pleasure derived from the fulfillment of your wishes and needs. Every inch of that is feminine exuberance. Okay, pleasure is a feminine principle. The feminine feels pleasure like like nothing else. When we feel pleasure, we run it through our bodies. We are lit up from the inside. Pleasure is the self-expression of our life force. And the feminine is the carrier of life force energy. When that is alive within us, when it is tingling through every cell, every atom of our bodies, that is what pleasure looks and feels like. And women, you know that. You know that. You know that when you have pleasure in any form, it doesn't have to be sexual pleasure. It can be the pleasure of watching a sunset, a sunrise, your children play. When you feel that sense of aliveness, that is pleasure and that is yours. And when you feel pleasure and run it through your bodies, it extends outwards and other people respond and feel it as well. So our pleasure is the root of pleasure and joy for everyone around us. Okay, so that's really important. Fulfillment is not linear. Fulfillment is circular. Fulfillment can take turns. Fulfillment is holistic. Fulfillment is not at all costs. A woman cannot be happy if those around her are not. So a woman's happiness actually means that everyone else in her system are also elevated. You know that old saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy? Well, in this case, all of us ladies are mamas. Our happiness creates, brings up, makes sure, ensures the happiness of others. So the pleasure derived from the fulfillment, that holistic, communal experience of our wishes and needs. Now, having needs met is every human being's desire on the planet. Every human needs to have their needs met. That's critical. And I don't just mean like having a roof over your head and food on the table. I mean, whatever your core needs are, whatever it is that makes you feel safe and secure in this life. And wishes, having your wishes fulfilled are what bring life meaning. Life itself has no meaning but that which we bring to it. And that comes from the fulfillment of our wishes. So a satisfied woman is a woman who is experiencing the pleasure of that fulfillment of her wishes and needs every day. Every day. And every day that can change. Every day that can evolve. She can wake up one morning and say, yeah, yes, this is my pleasure filled, fulfilling experience. Or she'll wake up one morning and say, actually, there's something over here I need to tweak. Because that sense of discomfort, that inner knowing, that little fester of something like the sand inside of the oyster that eventually becomes the pearl, that little sense of discomfort, that is ours first. The feminine feels it first. And we will not rest. We will not be comfortable until that is resolved. So it's a constant evolving process, and that is really at the heart of who we are. And the ability to grasp that kind of satisfaction is, I believe, every woman's birthright.
I love that so much. And I love the openness of it because it can
Mhm.
look in any way. One of the examples that you use in the book that I absolutely love, I wonder if I wonder if I can find it.
Yeah, it's not what we do, it's how we do it.
Yes, exactly. I actually have it here. It's well, there isn't one cookie cutter representation of what the satisfied woman looks like. We know her because of her ability to embody and express the greatest attributes of femininity with confidence, wildness, and freedom.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if she's changing the motor oil or baking cookies. What qualifies as feminine isn't a list of activities, but rather the way any activity is undertaken.
That's right.
And that is my brain the first and the second time I read it, because I read it twice. It was like,
Yeah, it
not
isn't what
about
we
what you
do.
do, it's about how you do it, that you
Yeah,
do it intuitively led, that you do it with joy, that you do it because it lights you up from the inside out, that you do it because it's bringing you satisfaction,
yeah.
because it's making you feel whole, whatever that is.
And I want to stress like the differences aren't the problem, right? Differences between masculinity and femininity are not the problem. There's been a long narrative of what's right and good is only the masculine version of something. So that's just not true. Like the image that keeps coming to mind that I really want to give as kind of a metaphor here. My beloved masculine partner is a motorcycle rider. So I like to ride on the back. I'm not the pilot in this case, the driver. So I get to observe quite a lot. And, he, as a solid masculine motorcycle riding human, dodges and weaves throughout traffic, and he's like pulling right up to the back of cars and then stopping kind of quickly. And he's a man. He's a man about it on the big steel horse he rides. And we do a lot of rides like community rides or group rides where we go with big groups of people. And there's always, a few women on motorcycles. And you'll notice that they ride differently. Their weaving through traffic is so much more graceful. It's so much more fluid. The way that they stay in a little community pack together, that they can always see each other and talk to each other. They're still riding the motorcycles, but they're doing it in their way. And that's the critical piece because I grew up in the early 80s where I was told, hey, you can do and be anything you want. And boy, did I believe that narrative. And I still want to impart that to all the women listening, but I want you to do it in your own way. One of the worst things we can do is, there's that saying, Joseph Campbell is famous for it, but I'm not sure it originated with him. There's nothing worse than building your ladder and climbing up it only to realize you've laid it on the wrong wall.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want you to do it in your way. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's building rockets. I don't care if it's baking cookies. I don't care if it's riding motorcycles or horses or bicycles. I don't care if it's driving fast cars, slow cars. I don't care if it's, dressing in your feminine way with lace or dressing in your, more masculine way with, I don't even know I mean, whatever it is, right? I just want you to do it in your way because the gender differences or the polarity differences are not the problem. It's the differentials that are the problem. It's when we see one as better than the other, is when we see one as being more relevant or more acceptable than the other, that's the problem. Differences are fine. Differentials are where we get stuck.
This is this is a beautiful and powerful conversation, and it is even more beautiful put into play, put into action.
Yeah.
And it requires all of us, like you said, it
Yeah.
requires the woman to have the courage to become untamed again,
Mhm.
to trust her wild, to tap into that intuition and trust it and act on it without explanation, without justification. It requires men to find their own courage and confidence to allow themselves to be almost in a way led by us, or to trust us to also give them that intuitive knowing, right? And to kind of just be
I
by
was,
their side, not necessarily want to walk ahead.
yeah.
But where does that start if you were going to give me a tangible explanation of doing? So we can be, this is the
Mhm.
being part, the being untamed, the being courageous, and the being in our intuition. Where is the doing to make it happen?
I mean, I guess it would depend on what it is you want to do. Because the feminine is receptive. And I'm not saying that we're all sitting around eating bonbons all day. Boy, do I wish that were the case. But
Yeah.
the way that the feminine moves and does, think about it as it's not, I mean, it is outward because we're out in the world, we're doing things, but we're moving from our center, right? If you think about it as being intuitively led, you are only moving when the intuition says yes. And when it stops saying yes, you just stop. And we have to be okay with that, right? We have to be okay with that downshift because another core feminine quality is receptivity. One of the things I want to encourage us to do as women is actually to do less. And I don't mean accomplish less. I don't mean be less relevant. I don't mean be less engaged. I mean stop doing the things that aren't yours to do, which so many of us do. I mean, I can't tell you how many women I speak to, especially in my coaching practice, like, oh, I've got Jimmy's fourth soccer practice this week. I have to lose sleep and get up early to take my husband to the airport. I've got to make sure that I meet the deadline. I want to get this done early for my boss. I'm like, why? Yes, we can do it all, but the question is, do you want to? Do you want to? Do you really want to do it all? Because if we continually fill up that space of doing, We are never allowing ourselves to be in the space of receiving. You have to leave a vacuum. You have to leave space for the masculine to fill. You have to give them the opportunity to do something for you. And what's remarkable in that is it actually empowers everybody when you do that. The masculine loves getting shit done. The masculine loves that, that energetic direction. They love the pursuit of things. They love the accomplishment. They love fixing problems. They love this. Let him do it. Let him do it. And again, you're not sitting there eating bonbons. You can say, what, actually, that honey, that doesn't feel right. Or honey, we're not quite there yet. I think about it, I'm a sailor and I actually have solo sailed. I can sail my boat on my own, right? I can sail across 2,500 feet of open ocean to the island of Catalina, 32 nautical miles away by myself on my little boat. And boy, does that feel amazing. But nothing feels as amazing as having my beloved masculine partner on that boat with me. Look, it's my boat. I'm the captain. My little shirt says captain. And I'm at the back of the ship with the tiller, kind of directing the flow. And I'm feeling the air and I'm feeling the wind and I'm watching how the sails fill. And when my beloved masculine partner is at the prow of the ship going, honey, are we going in the right direction? And I say yes, off we confidently go. And if he says, honey, are we going in the right direction? And I say, baby, we need to trim a little bit this way. Hang on to your hat. We're going to take a turn this way. He's responsive to the direction, but we are both making that boat go. We're both making that boat go. Both of us have responsibility. Both of us have roles. And my role, and I wouldn't call it leadership because I define leadership as more of a masculine term. I would call it like a calibration.
Mm.
Right? We're the calibrators. If we're comfortable and happy, we know that we're on the right, in sailing terms, tack. Your whole boat is going to shake and rock if you're not on the right tack, if you're not working with the wind. That's when you start to run into trouble. That's when the lines get tangled. That's when the rigging gets, soured. You want to be on the right tack in order to get to where you're going. And sometimes that's not always linear. Sailing's beautiful because it's never a direct line. And the masculine has to listen to the changes of the natural forces in order to get to the destination. And it's a partnership, it's a collaboration. So,
I love that.
yeah.
And so you're a sailor, the captain of your boat.
Yeah.
You're also a tango dancer, which
Yes.
I found fascinating because I started to learn to dance tango a few
Ah,
years ago too. And one of the
neat.
things I love about it is that it forces me so much into my feminine. For a
Yeah.
very long time, I was very much in my
Yes.
masculine energy, especially as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And tango was one of those things that taught me, oh, wait a minute.
Hmm.
That's not my job.
You will literally fuck it up if you're not in your
Yeah.
feminine.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And so I hear these as ways to replenish and recharge with all this fucking hard work that we're doing to fix
Yeah.
this planet.
Yeah. So much hard
Right?
work.
Just by tapping into our femininity, what would you say the feminine woman needs to do to nourish herself and to recharge as we step into that wild, untamed, intuitive version of ourselves that also has to remind other people like, hey, shut up and sit down. I'm not done being crazy yet.
I know. It's funny. I'm just noting that that's the second time you've asked about doing.
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Ladies, stop doing so much. You are already doing too much. What more? Do you want me to put more on your plate? Like, we couldn't possibly do more. We're already being asked to be everything for ourselves and everyone else at all times. I want us to start getting comfortable with doing less.
Mm.
Where can we create that vacuum? Because if you don't create that vacuum, nothing will fill it. You'll never feel that cherishing grace of the masculine, whether it's from within you or whether it's from outside of you. So I think that doing really is the first and most important thing is to tap into your intuition, to tap into your emotions, to really understand and feel what it is that you need on a daily basis, sometimes even a moment to moment basis. Self care is amazing. I mean, everybody loves self care. That definitely helps to replenish us. It's great for the feminine. One of the feminine words that I like is nourishment. How do you nourish yourself? How do you take in? Because I have a chapter in my book called Women Are Not the Bottomless Well. So if you think of a woman as a well, right? The well is filled from the inside with water, and that's how the whole community drinks. And the community can come to the well and be nourished by it. We are the life force. We are the life-giving energy. But if the community depletes the well before it has time to replenish, that well runs dry and the community suffers and the well suffers, right? Remember, we're the well in this metaphor. So not only do we have to make sure we have community members who cherish the well, who tend to the well, who allow the well to be replenished, we have to do the work of replenishing. And for some of us, that's dodging and weaving on our motorcycles. For some of us, that's taking a hot bath by candlelight with a glass of our favorite beverage. For some of us, that's sleeping in late and having coffee in the morning. For some of us, that's going out and feeling nature. For some of us, that's staying indoors. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't know what your self-care is, but you will know it when you feel that sense of nourishment and feminine connection. And I will challenge every one of you that it is probably by doing less than what you are doing now.
I can't think of a better way to end this part one of this
Part one.
conversation.
Yeah, I think we only got through the first like 2 chapters of the book.
Barely, barely through the first two
Yeah.
chapters of the book. But Alanna, it has been such a pleasure to hold this book in my hand and to feel it go through my being and to share this conversation with you about these first few chapters. So excited to talk again soon and to discover more what my satisfied self is like. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for putting this work out there for all of us. It really is transformational and necessary.
Absolutely my pleasure. And it's a great privilege and honor to be able to do this work. So thank you.